I'm Vincent Di Pasquale, and today in this free video we're going to take a look at the Progressions to Sample Pack, new on Sounds to Sample, and we're going to basically be answering the question, okay, so you buy these sample packs, what's the best way to get started? How do you dive in and explore the sounds? And staring at a blank Logic screen or Pro Tools screen or Ableton screen is always, a big hurdle. So we're just going to take a look at some basic steps that you can manipulate the loops and get started creatively in your sessions. So let's take a loop. I just have a basic Logic page here with a default tempo 120, and I'm going to explore this folder a little bit. And I want to focus on the drums. You can see inside the folder you got drum hits, drum loops, and Rex2 files. So let's start with the drum loops. Let's just audition a couple of these. Alright, that one's cool. So I'm just going to drag this out onto an audio track. You can already see the loop doesn't really match with my 2-bar cycle region up there. And that's because this file obviously doesn't match the tempo. Now, these samples are all named really well. So it says right on there, Pro Tool Drum 127. So that's the tempo. So if I change my session tempo to 127, you can see it matches. Now, all the software applications out there, Ableton, Pro Tools, Logic, they all have some sort of warping or elastic audio parameter. And in Logic, it's flex. So if I turn that on and set it to rhythmic, you can see it turns gray and analyzes that. So now if I want to change the tempo back to 128, or let's say 126, it turns orange telling you it slowed it down, and now it's matching the tempo. So it'll play in whatever tempo your session is. So it's really easy to flex and warp things around. So we can get out of the flex view, and that's basically a wave really quick. But now what I want to do is move and show you the Rex2 files. So if we go into that folder, I'm going to pick the same Rex file, drag that out to a new track. It's just telling me it's a recycle file and some default parameters. That's perfectly fine. Now the good thing about Rex files, you can see it creates a folder. There's no real waveform in there yet. So if I double click, since we dragged it right onto Logic's arrange page, it imports it as a folder. And this is cool because if you double click and get in there, you can really see how Rex files are pretty much made. And they're just slices of audio. So if I play this, maybe I want to pull out the claps. So I can drag down on every 2 and 4 beat. Let's just pull out the claps onto a new track, and I'll mute those. Cool. So now I'm going to start to kind of make this a signature loop, kind of make it my own. So I've got a third track down there. Let's drag out these tonal hits. And I'll mute that just for now. Let's hear what these hat pattern sounds like. Alright, so let's just start moving this stuff around. I'm going to copy these hat patterns to an 1/8 before where they are now, just copying them over and double that up a little bit. Then maybe I'm going to take these tonal hits and slide them back just a 16th note and alter that a little bit. So you can see just by this Rex file being sliced up, we have total control and we can make it our own. I want to add a new clap later, so we'll go ahead and leave that like that. So let's get out of that folder real quick. And now let's take a look at Ultrabeat. And Ultrabeat is the drum sampler that I'm going to use inside Logic. So I have this default parameter set up in Ultrabeat that I like to use just for auditioning sounds and getting a basic beat. I have a kick, a snare, and a hi-hat. And each one has a already set sequencer pattern. On the hi-hat I have every 1/8, the snare, the 2 and the 4, and the kick every downbeat. And what I can do, let me mute the other loops, is go back into the media browser, go to the drum hits. And the drum hits are just single drum files, like 1 hits. So I can get into the bass drums. We'll go ahead and play this. You don't hear anything because there's no samples loaded. So I'm just going to drag a kick. Just drag a couple of these. See which one I like, kind of audition them. That one's cool. Okay, now I'm going to move up to the snare, select that, and do the same thing with the snare and then the hi-hat. Let's get a basic pattern here. Sounds a little off. There, that's cool. So now let's move up to the hi-hat and kind of audition some of those. That one's cool. So now I can close that. And let's unmute this loop and hear what we got. Okay, so I've got the ultra beat doing this basic pattern, and I have a choice here. I can leave the sequencer on so it'll just play all the time, but I want a little more control, so I'm going to turn the sequencer off, drag the MIDI pattern out, and then that'll play based on the MIDI region. It also helps me see it that there's something there. So we got the basic loop now. I want to add one other thing, and I'm back in the drum loops wave files. And let's listen to a couple of these. Alright, that one's cool. I like that. I'm going to drag that out. It doesn't have any kick. It's more percussive and top end, which I want to add to what we already have. And I'm going to edit this up and change it. So just like the Rex files, which come sliced up, you can also slice these up yourself and change them in the same way with any other loop. So remember, it's not in the proper tempo. These are at 127, and our tempo is 126. So I can flex that like we did before, or I can just hold down Option and stretch that to time correct it. Then I can bring up my scissors, and I can make a cut on the grid wherever I want. So there's an eighth note. I can also hold down Option, and whatever the next value is that I cut at, in this case again an eighth note, it cuts that 2-bar loop in every eighth note. And I can do that from the beginning too. So, alright, so let's play this. I'm going to start pulling out these elements. We'll pull out the snare. And let's pull out these tonal hits. Alright, so now we've sliced that up. Let's mute the bottom two and see what we have in the top. Alright, so this one's a little bit longer here with a little percussive hit left over, and there's a little popping click there from just a little bit left over from the transient. So what I can do is trim this back. We'll trim that back a good bit, just like that. Then I can apply a group fade out, and that should clean that up. So it's got a little percussive hi-hat thing going on. Then on the bottom we got this tonal hit, and I'm just going to copy a few of those over. Alright, that one's maybe a little too much. So got this little groove. Let's hear how it sounds with the other elements. Cool, maybe add one more back here. And anyway, there we go. We have our cool little loop happening. Okay, so just a couple simple exercises and simple ways you can kind of explore sounds and get a cool groove happening. So again, we were using the Progressions to Sample Pack from SoundsToSample.com, and definitely want to tune in next time where we're going to be adding a bass line and working with some bass lines and coming up with cool patterns. And also definitely check out the videos from FaderPro.com available at Sounds to Sample. Alright, see you next time.